First of all, I hope that you're all well and your families and your coworkers are well. And I appreciate the county executive hosting us. We're at the epicenter of, unfortunately, Bergen County is known for so many great things. But right now we're at the epicenter of our challenge, so appreciate you hosting us here. Appreciate the sheriff and the clerk being with us as well. And of course, my colleague and combatant in arms, Senator Booker, has been extraordinary in the work that we've done. And I hope that we're all, at the end of the day, back at home, observing the very essence of what is necessary to beat the virus and to starve it off, which is the social distancing that is so critical, and the intergenerational responsibility we have to each other. Because you can be young and think that you're invincible, but you could also be carrying the virus and spread it to your parents, your grandparents, your family members, and those you love. So this is one in which we are either part of the solution or we become part of the statistics, and we want to be part of the solution. I'm glad to be here with Senator Booker to talk about how the $2 trillion coronavirus response package passed by Congress last week is beginning to deliver urgently needed funds to Bergen County and communities across New Jersey in their hour of need. Today we're announcing the first tranche of federal grant dollars, over $82 million, to help our towns and cities with everything from paying first responders to preventing evictions to protecting services to the most vulnerable. Before I get to some of the specifics of the grant monies and how it works, let me just say a few words about COVID-19 and the scope of the challenge facing our state and the nation. When I look back at my nearly 3 decades in Congress between the House and the Senate, I think about the enormous challenges we faced. I was there on September 11th. I was there during the financial crisis of 2008, Superstorm Sandy in 2012. We have been through a lot, but I can tell you that COVID-19 is unlike anything that we have encountered before. The number of cases is rising, the toll on our hospitals, doctors, and nurses, and our providers is growing, and too many people are dying. And the best strategies for defeating this pandemic, practicing social distancing, limiting public gatherings, closing down businesses, all of them come with a heavy cost for our economy. I know the economy is on the top of mind for many Americans, but it's important to remember that the wealth of the nation will only improve with the health of the nation. And that health brings confidence, and that's critical for the economics of the country to succeed. I've seen the CDC projections for what would happen if the United States abandoned the tough social distancing measures necessary to prevent the spread of COVID-19, and none of us, I believe, want to accept the consequences of doing that and the numbers that would be involved. The death toll would not be in the thousands or even in the hundreds of thousands. It would be in the millions. So we all have to take the social distancing seriously because, as I said before, we're either going to be part of the solution or part of the statistics. Let me recognize New Jersey's nurses, doctors, first responders, hospital workers who are on the front lines and in the trenches of this battle, sometimes risking in their own lives and the deep concern of coming home and extending the possibility of infecting families. This is an extraordinary group of people doing extraordinary things. Our grocery store workers, police officers, pharmacists, firefighters, also on the front lines. That's why during the negotiations around the stimulus package, Senator Booker and I demanded that it included help for our hospitals and healthcare workers working around the clock to save lives. Some people said, well, why didn't you all just agree very quickly? The answer was, had we agreed very quickly to what was presented to us, the Marshall Plan that we started putting funding for, $100 billion for hospitals and healthcare workers, would not have existed. What we're going to talk about today, CDBG grants, would not have existed. The state and federal, the State Stabilization Fund was non-existent non-existent. They wouldn't put zero towards it. So that's why we had to fight. We also demanded, and this Senator Booker was one of the leaders in the Senate on this issue, direct payments to families, forgivable loans for small businesses. So he sits on the Small Business Committee, and better unemployment compensation for people out of work. And finally, we demanded that it deliver federal dollars to our communities on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19, like right here in Bergen County. At the start of these negotiations, the other side was eager to pass a bill that didn't send a dime to state and local governments, but Cory and I knew that would be unacceptable. In recent weeks, we've heard from hundreds of mayors. We've conducted some conference calls twice now with mayors across the state and public officials from across New Jersey, and it's clear they're facing a 1-2 punch. Demand for essential local services like emergency response, rental assistance, mental health care services, and more is going through the roof at the very same time that their revenues to pay for them are plummeting like never before. We refuse to leave our communities behind. After all, it's not big corporations answering 911 calls or enforcing social distancing or setting up the new testing sites. It's our state and local governments. During a time of crisis, only the federal government has the resources to step in and help cash-strapped communities avoid painful and harmful choices, like laying off first responders or closing down local health departments just when we need them the most. So I'm proud that Senator Booker and I and our Democratic colleagues stood our ground. We fought back, and in the end, we secured billions of dollars in additional aid for state and local governments, including $3.44 billion in state stabilization funds for New Jersey. We also fought to boost funding for federal programs, proven to strengthen our communities, which is what brings us here today. We're pleased to announce the release of $82 million in grants from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, with the largest infusion of over $8.3 million coming to the front lines of our fight against COVID-19 right here in Bergen County. All told, $53.7 million in community development block grants will flow to cities and counties throughout New Jersey. CDBGs are among the most effective tools we have to help our communities meet the needs of our residents. And we cut a whole lot of red tape in this bill so that local leaders can immediately put these dollars to work in the fight against COVID-19, whether it's keeping our health departments fully staffed or retrofitting facilities or creating testing facilities or providing grants to struggling business and nonprofits. In addition, $26.5 million in emergency solution grants will go to rental assistance, eviction prevention, and anti-homelessness programs. And I'm urging the Trump administration to and I'm urging the Trump administration to rapidly release the remaining $26 million in ESG grants slated for New Jersey as humanly possible. Finally, we're also announcing another $2 million statewide for the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, or HOPWAP program, to make sure that our most vulnerable, immunocompromised residents are not left out in the cold. And you better believe that we'll continue to fight to deliver more help for New Jersey in the weeks to come. As I said from the start of the crisis, in the midst of a global pandemic, we cannot defeat this challenge if the state and local communities are doing it alone. The federal government has to be in the fight, and that means not just dealing with large corporations. We have to put people first. And that's what today's funding is all about, making sure our local governments can continue to protect, support, and serve the people. There's only one way we're going to get through this crisis, and that's together. That's what makes us Jersey strong. We support each other, we fight for each other, and all of us make sacrifices for the greater good. Believe me, I know how hard it is to socially distance, especially from the ones we love. Last week when I returned to New Jersey after weeks in Washington, I had to stand 6 feet away from my grandchild. When all I wanted to do was hug them close. But as I said before, we can either be part of the solution or part of the statistics. I'm confident that today's federal grants will be a shot in the arm for local governments across New Jersey working tirelessly to be part of the solution. This is not the end. This is an imperfect piece of legislation. It is not everything that we wanted. It's not everything that we are still going to fight for. We're going to have to go at it again. And we believe that risk, and actual challenges that emanate, as New Jersey is now #2 in the nation, that needs to be the measurement by which we dole out federal dollars moving forward. With that, my colleague, who's been an extraordinary fighter, some critical positions, small business, on the advocacy for individual payments, and so much more, Senator Cory Booker.
Thank you. It's good to be here in Bergen County, my home county. I want to give acknowledgement to the incredible leadership of this county who are doing an extraordinary